Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Spiritually Fucked podcast. I am your host, Taylor Mulholland. Let's get into the show. Poetry. Who likes poetry? You're probably wondering why I have a poetry book and why I publish a poetry book and is it silly? And we're going to get all into that. And I'm also going to share with you some tips and tricks and some behind the scenes of how to publish a book for anyone who ever wanted to do that. It honestly is a very rewarding process, and if I can do it, I know anyone is able to do it. It definitely took a lot of work and a lot of figuring out, but you know what? I figured it out and I realized that it is pretty simple when you know the right steps. So it's something I'm super passionate about now, and I really want to inspire anyone who ever thought about writing a book or who wants to just to do it. And if you do need help, here I am. But let's start with what is Sad Flowers Written and why I even did that and how that happened. And it's actually, all the stories are very serendipitous of how it came about and how I birthed this poetry child. But we'll start with the name. The name Sad Flowers Written, well, it actually, and I hate that. Well, I don't hate, but it's just one of those stories that started at an ayahuasca retreat. But it's true. So in 2020, when I went to Salterra in Costa Rica, I did a week drinking ayahuasca. It was 4 ceremonies, whatever. And during our downtime, me and some of the other participants there would color and do all the things. So when we were coloring, I started drawing these flowers and I started drawing sad faces on them because I just thought it was so silly. There was something about it that made me feel a lot better. Something about a flower that was sad. I'm like, this is just hilarious because flowers typically are happy and you think of smiley faces, but there was something about this droopy sad flower that I loved. And so after the retreat, I went home and I was always into photography and I decided to start an Instagram. And this Instagram is still out there, by the way. And I would post a photo every day. So 1 photo per day. And it was Sad Flowers XO. So that's when the name Sad Flowers came about. And I every day would post just 1 photo. And it could have been anything. It was photography. It was mostly like nature. And it was never of me. It was like, I don't know, a dog. Like I was dog sitting a lot. So there were a lot of dogs on there. Or anything that felt creative. It was like my little creative outlet using photos and like very blunt captions. And so I did that every single day for a few years. And there would be weeks where I wouldn't go on and then I'd go back on and I would count how many days I missed and then I'd post that many photos. So it was like 1 photo per day since I started that. And it was kind of like this consistent routine that I built up. And I really liked how over time I would go back and look at these photos and I would see, you go back 3 years and you're like, wow, I have 1 photo every single day and I get to look over that. And I really, it sparked something in me. And probably last year, I think mostly when I started to get more into my poetry side, I stopped posting. And I said, okay, I cannot do this every day. Like it sounds so easy, but then you forget. And then 21 days go by and you're like, I have to post 21 photos. And I would do that, but I just kind of was like, okay, on to the next chapter. And also after the retreat, when I returned, I started writing more. And I would do my morning pages. And then all of a sudden, something was unlocked. And I started writing in the middle of the night. And my first poem in my book, kind of like after the first couple pages, it's like my first poem and it's after 2 a.m. love stories because that's when I write most of my writing during the wee hours of the night. I wrote this poem at 2:30 a.m. and it kind of was like the initiation of my middle of the night writing, and the 2 a.m. love poems kind of became this thing. I downloaded this app called like Poetryyy. I don't even know. It's for like poetry, and I used the username sadflowerswritten because it was like sad flowers. It was like my little username written. And then I kind of forgot about it. I like literally posted 1 poem on this app and then I forgot about it. But I continued the photography thing. And so that's where the name started. In 2021, that's when I started writing like aggressively, and it was mostly morning pages. And then every once in a while I would like quote unquote channel some sort of poem. And I say channel because it was more like a poetic dump. Like it wasn't like I was writing to process anything. I was just like writing my feelings. And it came through more like poetically and rhymey. And, you know, a lot of my writings are mostly like songs. Like they kind of have their own little melody to them. So I just started writing aggressively, I guess you would call it. And I'd write it in the notes in my phone. So that started in 2021, and then it went until, well, to this day, because I still do that. But I was just writing a ton. And then in 2023, and of course, like you cannot make this shit up. The time period of when I started putting my book together was the same exact time I broke my right hand. And that is my writing hand. And I know this injury happened because it was God, the universe, source being like, bitch, you gotta like stop taking your hand for granted. The metaphysical aspect of that, like your hands are an extension of your heart, and your right side is your masculine side. So there was a lot of work around that. But it mostly was like, yo, girl, like it's time, like you take a look at your writings and like do something with it. Because at the time I had 2,000 notes in my phone of just like, you know, word vomit, but it was poetic word vomit. And I was doing nothing with it. And I just got certified in combo, which is so funny because as soon as I told the world like I'm serving combo, I break my right hand, and I'm like, okay, no, I'm not, because my hand's broken. So there was just a lot of things happening that were not coincidences. And so I put the combo aside and I started working on more, I started like paying attention to my writing. But the book was not even in my forefrontal lobe at all. Still, I just was like, okay, I want to be a writer. I'm going to look at more at my writings. But the way the book even started was, so I had all these writing in my notes. And then my mom actually pulled me aside and she was like, I updated my phone and all the notes in my phone disappeared. And I was like, what? I'm like, there's no way. Let me look. And I looked and there was no way to find them. They completely erased and disappeared. And I thought, oh shit, if that happened to my phone, I'd lose my mind, because so much potent information is in my notes. Like that's where I wrote everything. When that happened, here's a note. I still have not updated my phone because I am terrified of that happening. So I still have the iOS from 2023. So anytime someone sends me an emoji that's new, I cannot see it still. It's still a question mark. And I am so stubborn. I'm like, I'm not updating my phone. I'm not getting a new phone. Like, I can't risk that happening. But when that happened to her, I went back from all the way to the beginning of when I even got an iPhone, which was probably like 2016 or something. And I started putting those notes that were poetic into a document folder. And I just started making the transfer. And again, to remind you of the time, this is in 2023. My hand's literally broken. I'm mostly doing this with my left hand, but I'm putting all the notes into a document. And I'm just like, wow, I'm going over and I'm rereading the stuff that I once forgot about. And a lot of the time, all my writing was in the middle of the night. So I had no recollection or no idea that any of this even was a thing. Because when you write in the middle of the night, you don't really remember when you wake up until you go back and look. But I wasn't going back and looking. And so when I was doing this, I was like, whoa, this is like pretty good. And then one day came and I'm like, this document is 700 pages. I've got to do something with this. And that's when I was like, I'm going to make a book. So in 2023, that's when I decided I was going to make a book with the writings that I already had. And so here comes Sad Flowers Written Volume Bloom. The reason, I don't know if anyone caught this, but it's Sad Flowers Written Volume Bloom. And Volume Bloom is a hint that it's the first of many. So if you have that book and you look at the dates, all the dates besides the first one, which was from after my ayahuasca experience, it was like the first one at 2:30 a.m. All of the poems are from 2022 to 2023. because this is the first volume. So it's from September to September. And it's like 226 page book. So that's why I had to do the writings with separate books, because literally I published this book in 2025. So if I did all those writings, it would be a literal 1,000-page book. So if you have the chance or buy yourself the gift of this book, you'll see that all these writings were never meant to be seen. And this was one of the most vulnerable things I've ever done. You know, you can ask like, oh, like, who is your muse? Like, what is your muse? And to be completely honest, genuinely, everything is a muse to me. I get inspired by my own feelings. So if I watch something or I read something, or if I'm in this poetic daze, I will sit there and I will channel. I like to call it a literal channel, because I feel like, is it me writing? I still haven't determined who it is writing this, because from my everyday personality to my writings, they're very different, and it's almost like two different people. And that's why, you know, it's so special to me, because it is me, but at the same time, I feel like I'm taking these feelings that I am experiencing and I'm putting it through words for other people to relate to. And my intention behind all my poetry, and my intention behind really anything, this podcast, my Instagram, like my silly reels, whether it's silly or poetic, my intention is to get people into their hearts. And for my writings, I truly believe it is a direct channel, because it's coming from my heart, what I am experiencing, for other people to read it and feel that they are heard or can resonate with that feeling. Because if us humans, all have that gift of feeling and experiencing emotions. That's one thing we all have in common. And so if there's something that we can read or watch or see that sparks that same frequency or that same feeling within inside of us, that's just bringing the world together. And that's the gift behind music, and that's the gift behind books and TV and even reality TV. If everyone's feeling the same emotion, whether it's good or bad, we're all on that same frequency. We're all on that same wavelength. It's literally bringing the collective together. Obviously, we want to be in the same, you know, an uplifting frequency, but regardless, it brings us together. And so Sad Flowers Written Volume Bloom is a very like heartache, you know, this longing for something. When you read that, from what I know as being a girl, a young girl, and it's the idea is the book's coming from a young, foolish heart. It's for those girls who feel they love too big. Or guys, it's for the people that feel they love too big or their emotions are too big. And they want to feel seen in that. They want to feel a resonance in that. And so when you read this book of me being compulsive and obsessive and crazy, and you read that and you feel seen for the people who have felt those same emotions. So when I released this book, it was like all this obsession and crazy feelings I was experiencing. I was doing it for the people who think they love too big and think that their emotions are too big. But when they read and when they see that someone else has felt that, it makes them feel seen. And so that was my intention behind releasing the book. From Volume Bloom is 2022 to 2023. And yes, there is a second coming out, but you guys, the second book from 2023 to 2024 is 1,000 pages. I have no fucking idea how to kind of organize this. I think I might have to separate them into two books, because from the arc of Volume Bloom, you can clearly see it was mostly this like poetic heart longing, this crazy obsession for a feeling I was experiencing. And then when I get into literally the start of September of 2023, I'm like, whoa, this is a totally different vibe. Like it was the same kind of, you know, longing or whatever experiencing, but there's this whole other self-reflection of it. So it's like I almost have these two books of one of like this young, foolish heart, which is the soul experience of Volume Bloom, and then I have this other one which is like this girl who's awakening. Anyways, I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. The second one has a lot more writings, like journal entries, less than like poetry style. It's like something you'd read on a Substack. It is one section, and then the other section is more like rhythmic, melodic poems. So I'm still trying to decide on the second one. And I do have an Instagram for Sad Flowers Written. And that one is designed to be more of like the first Sad Flowers Written XO that I did of the photography photos. Like I just post one poem a day, and I actually started just doing like 7 one day a week because I still want to have that like every day gets one poem, and those are like so sporadically placed. How I work creatively is like so unorganized to other people, but in my head I'm like, this is the most organized thing I've ever done in my life. And I think that's how really any creative works. So if you do read the Instagram, it's gonna be scattered brain and random, but those poems are meant to hit the people that are meant to see them. So that's kind of why I allowed that more to be sporadic and to be very impromptu, because I know whoever is meant to read it is going to find it, even though literally no one has really found it because it has like 60 followers, but that's okay because all my besties are following it. And if they read it and they feel something in their heart, then I've done my job. And so for the second book, I'm spending a lot more time with that because I don't know how it's going to look. And okay, when I released Volume Bloom and started getting like some feedback on it, I'm like, damn, I could have took this so many ways. Like I could have really made this a more of like a novel of a girl with a young foolish heart and made it a story arc. But instead it was kind of just like my sporadic brain, like word vomiting in some pages and then giving it to the world. So if I ever redo that book, I definitely have a lot of not critiques, but a lot of changes I think would be great for the readers to have more of like a hook and an arc. And like, I'm learning, okay? It'd have a story. This one is just like my poetic heart on paper. So yeah, that is kind of like the gist and the heart of Sad Flowers Written. And there's a lot more coming. I have a lot. I have a lot of pages that are in my computer that I have yet to release. So that is something to look forward to. And if you're here for the part about how to publish a book, let me tell you guys, if I can do it, I know you can do it, but that does not mean it was easy. It took a lot of freaking devotion to this. And there were a lot of times when I wanted to give up because I would be staring at my computer for 9 hours, just frustrated. And there was a lot of frustration in the process because especially when you are a quote unquote artist and you have this idea, putting it in the 3D for someone who literally gets a lot of their heart and soul in channeling from the 5D and to try to put it in a 3D is freaking hard. Okay. And I'm not a tech wizard. I didn't go to publishing school. I failed all my English classes. Like, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, and it was all on research. And guess what, you guys? This is before I even knew what ChatGPT was. And I'm really glad it was because I just would never use that for my books. And I don't think there's anything wrong with using it for writing. I do want anything that I produce or give to this world to be as authentic as I can. And this book is very, very authentic. And if there's spelling errors and, weird things in it that you're probably like, oh, this is, not professional. Well, you know what? It's authentic. Okay. And I actually did a really good job, I think, with the whole like spelling error or like spell check stuff and grammar. I learned so much about grammar. I'm like a grammar freaking expert now. Like I could copyright professionally by now because I spent so much time on my own work perfecting it. It was like doing multiple amounts of research and like case studies. Like I felt like I was in school, like having to go back and edit and like reframe freaking everything. And now when I edit things, I'm like, wow, I could actually do this professionally. And granted, I'm a human and I still have mistakes, but I learned a lot. And I think that's what anything you approach in life, if you start from a beginner's mindset and you do it yourself, you will literally learn everything rather than like sending it off or like using ChatGPT to just spell check everything. Like there's something about doing it yourself that you learn so much about. And I'm grateful I had that experience to do it. And I will be doing that for, the next books, unless I get picked up by a big daddy publisher who wants to do it for me. But when it came to actually doing it, I mean, I think the first books always start off like double the amount of pages because you go through and you edit and you clear. And I was editing that book forever. Does this poem fit? Should I keep this in? How many pages do I want it to be? And then granted, my book was so easy because it wasn't so easy, but it was a little bit easier because I didn't name any of my poems. I just timestamped them. And so all the poems are in the order of the timestamp. So that's like, okay, easy. I don't have to organize or who comes first or what, or I didn't have to name any of them. I just didn't like the idea of poems having names. I wanted them to have a timestamp of who I was at the time. I would sit and just edit and read and read and read and read. And then you think the document's perfect and then you print it on paper and you're like, oh my God, this looks horrible. And then you have to edit it on paper. So the first comes to getting like the raw draft. And when you think the raw draft is done, it's not because then you have to transfer it. And I learned so much about files and what file it has to be and what size and document. And so you have to do all that. And before you even do any of that transferring, you have to find a publisher. And it's so funny because it's not funny, it's just how things are in my life. When I started looking about self-publishing, I found this one website and because I was looking at all of them, you guys. I literally found every single self-publishing website and investigated it because there's pricing and all that. And a lot of people use Amazon, and I actually think Amazon is great. It's easy, but you don't get that much money and I'm pretty sure that's why I strayed away from it. And I kind of was like, I'm anti-Amazon and I'm going to do it not on Amazon. So Amazon is a really easy way to do it. And it's pretty much the top competitor of the company I actually went with. But I really liked the company I did it with. And it was fairly user-friendly. So when I was looking, I was typing on the internet, what self-publishing website should I use? I found this one. And when I clicked on it, my intuition said you're going to publish through them. But when I opened up the website, none of the images were loading. All it said was lulu.com. I literally couldn't read anything because nothing was loading. And I was like, that's so weird. Like, why would I intuitively say that when this website is not even functioning right? Then I went with Barnes & Noble. I was like, whatever, I'm doing Barnes & Noble. But my intuition kept saying, do it with Lulu, do it with Lulu. And even the name is like so cute. It's like lulu.com. But I was head first into Barnes & Noble because of the name. My ego was like, I'm publishing with Barnes & Noble, like that. I'm going to use that as my publishing outlet. And when I was making an account, it would not work. Like none of the email addresses, passwords I was using would work. And I'm like, what the frick? This is so frustrating because I wanted to use Barnes & Noble so badly. And I kept trying and trying and trying, and everything was not working about that. And so I went with a different one, and I went with IngramSpark, and which was recommended through the writer's workshop I did, which the writer's workshop was from Hay House, and Hay House is like a huge publisher. They sign all the spiritual entrepreneurs, and they have like Joe Dispenza's book. Obviously, I'm a Joe Dispenza cult member, so I'm like, if the person who distributes Joe Dispenza's book says to self-publish through IngramSpark, I'm going to publish through IngramSpark. And so I tried IngramSpark, and I'm like, this is the ugliest website I've ever seen in my life. Like the whole entire process was just ugly, and aesthetically pleasing things, like it does help. And it seemed a little confusing. And then the ISBN shit was happening. They're like saying they would give you one, but then they would take some sort of recognition for it. And I'm like, this website disgusting. And so I went back on Lulu. The images still were not loading, but I signed in, everything was working great, and I was like, fuck it, I'm publishing with this. And I'm so grateful that I did. I should have just listened to my intuition in the beginning, but we have to go through those steps to learn that our intuition is typically always right. And in this situation, it was. And so I found the website I was going to publish with. And then you have to copyright it, which it says it would take 6 months to copyright check, which it didn't. It actually only took a month, but that you have to pay a fee for a copyright because I didn't want anyone stealing my stuff. It made me feel like a big girl to put that money down towards my work and get it copyrighted and have it be all mine. So I copyrighted it, and then you have to buy an ISBN and a barcode, which those are for putting your book on the map. And every single book has an ISBN. So when you scan it at any bookstore, the exact same thing pops up. And so I learned a lot about that. You have to buy one. Making a book is fairly inexpensive except for those two things. So those two together maybe cost like $200. And I was like, okay, whatever. You just got to do it and call it a day. So if anyone's out there like wondering like, oh, like it's going to cost so much money, I don't have the money to create a book. Literally, you guys need $200 if even. You don't even have to copyright it. So that takes off like whatever, how much it costs to copyright. And then you can get free ISBNs from websites. So you could create and publish a book for free. There's a little side note for you, but I wanted everything to be mine. I wanted it to be mine. So I bought everything, which I think if you're going to do it, you should just do it. I found my publishing website. I got the copyright. I got the ISBN. And then you have to get the cover art for it. And I created my cover art from the front, from the side, and from the back. And Lulu actually makes it so easy. They even have formats for you to create the cover art for it. I did mine on my iPad through this app. I cannot remember what it's called because I haven't been in it since I created the book. But the amount of edits I had on the cover art was actually insane because you have to have the front and then you have to make the side. Thankfully, I like Photoshop and I enjoy doing those things. I was okay doing it, but it definitely took a lot of time, a lot of effort. When you do your own cover art, I mean, you have to get the sizes and the dimensions right. And what I did is I drew my art, which here's a little story behind the art on my book is I drew these before a book was even in my frontal lobe. I'm really enjoying the word frontal lobe today. So the art was already made and it wasn't made to be a book. The front of the book, my little sad flower, I created in October of 2022. So kind of in the beginning of when those writings started. And I always envisioned this on the book. Whenever I was like, I'm going to make a book, I was like, this is it. And even the Instagram I made, this was the icon photo because there was just something about this image. And then I was like, oh, wait, that makes so much sense. It started at the same time as my writings. And then I was like, wait a second. It's literally a sad flower. I am not kidding you. When I had this vision come to me in October of 2022, it had no correlation to Sad Flowers Written or sad flowers in general. I was just obsessed with skulls because I think our skeletons are so beautiful. It's who we are in this life. We don't take them with us into the next life. And so I think skulls are beautiful. They're very sentimental because it's who I am in this life. Was getting into drawing again because, again, I got into this inspired muse state where I was writing and doing music and art. I just was so in my creative essence. And when I drew this, I'm like, wait, it's a sad flower. And it was so serendipitous. Like, you can't make this shit up. I was just following my own intuition. And then the back of it was just something I drew in the beginning of 2023. I just loved the look of skeletons just being like cute and beautiful. And so I was drawing them because it's so poetic. If you think about it, we are souls and we have many lives, but we're only this body in this one life. Like we only get the skeleton in this one life. And there's something so beautiful about that. And I chose this skeleton in this life, so I'm going to beautify that. And I beautified it through art. And there's something so aesthetically pleasing about looking at a skeleton when they're cute and like they have life. So I drew this photo of like a little skeleton holding a vase of flowers and feathers, and I only cut out the arms of it because the real version had like butterflies and wings and it was huge, and I'm like, I don't want this on my book. I want it to be about the writing. And so I drew that's where the cover art came from. And the side of the book, that actually took a lot of thinking about, because I could have just went with the plain old text, and then I'm like, you know what, I want something, there needs to be some sort of like splattered art on it. At the bottom of it, it's volume bloom, and I'm not kidding you, it is so hard to make something look effortless when you're doing it. And so I spent so long trying to write or create something because I wanted to look like someone painted on it. And then I went back to the document. I gave up. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I went back into a few pages before then where I was testing out the paintbrushes. And I literally wrote exactly what I was looking for in this document from like, I don't even know how long ago it was, but I wrote volume bloom. And if you look at the side of the book, it says volume bloom, and it looks like someone just wrote it with a Sharpie or paint. And I wanted that look, but trying to create that look, it sounds so much easier than it is. I was trying so hard at something so effortless when I already had it. And so I was like, oh, perfect. I'll just cut, copy, and paste it on the side. And then it ended up being great. I had my cover art and I had the inside of the book. So I uploaded onto Lulu, and it sounds so easy, like, oh, you just upload it. No. It has to be the right pixels. It has to be the right size. This was the frustrating process, and this is where I almost quit. I had an entire book. I had the cover art, and then the transferring process, and I'm pretty sure I did it at a time when the planets were acting all shitty, and I was so frustrated. I would spend hours staring at my computer trying over and over and over again and doing all these different transfers and exports, and it got so frustrating, but it finally worked. And when it finally sent through, like, thank you, God. So I put in my first copy. I had it sent to me, and okay, of course I did a card reading of which book was going to be the one I'm going to use, because I'm witchy like that. The first one, it was a no. The second one, it was a no. But the third one, it said yes. And that's exactly how it went. So the first one sent, and I opened it, and I just started fucking laughing because I'm like, are you kidding me? This looks horrible. It looked so bad. And I chose cream colored paper because I'm like, that's easier on the eyes, and it was not easy. It was terrifying. It looked so ugly. And then the front of the book, it looked bad. And so I was like, okay, this is a great piece to work on too. So I did the second copy, and I made all these adjustments, and then I even opened up the page, and even some of the writings, I'm like, this looks horrible in a book, because it can look great in a document, but when you actually have it in a book, it looks totally different. I'm like, is this even the same thing? I did a lot of edits on the first one, and the second one came, and I'm like, okay, it's getting better. I like the white pages. There are a few things that I need to adjust. And then I started questioning, like, do I even like this poem? And it's like the never-ending editor. You gotta make a point to stop. You just gotta do it. It's never gonna be perfect if you keep editing it. So when I did the final edit on the second book, the third one came, and I said, this is it. This is gonna be it. Whatever this book is, it's it. And I opened it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the book I've been envisioning for all this time. And I said, I did it. I did it. And I got so excited, and I wanted to share with everyone. And this was all in February. And I didn't launch until, I guess it wasn't that long, until March. Because I did everything like behind the scenes, kind of secret. I didn't really tell my friends where I was at. I just was doing it all on my own, which was so fun to have these little secrets for myself. But the third one came, and I said, okay, this is it. I started building a website, and then I started to kind of game plan my launch. That's a whole other thing, because you got to launch the book. When you're launching something that you've never talked about in your entire life, it's kind of like, what is she doing? Like, is she being serious? And that's how it was for me. So this was a whole process. I remember telling one of my close friends last year, I want to do a poetry book. And she was like, you write poetry? And I'm like, what? I'm like, do you not know this? And she's like, no. And then I realized like no one knew this about me because I kept it so hidden. That was a reflection in itself of how I showed up in all my life, in all my relationships, this vulnerable side of me that I wasn't showing. And no one knew about it. But because I lived that so much in my head, I just assumed everyone knew, but I wasn't expressing it with my voice, so no one knew. And that's kind of like any emotion. You can feel something for all your life, but no one knows about it until you speak about it. This was a huge learning lesson in that aspect. Yeah, I started my game plan, and then I was like, anyone who's about to share something really big and vulnerable, you're like, I'm going to do it. And then you're like, no, I'm not. And it seems so good and great in your head. And then you actually do it, and it's like not what you imagined. And I had a lot of this experience this year where trying to create something externally and being so set in expectations. And then when those expectations fail, quote unquote fail, or they don't meet those expectations you had or set for them, it's like a total buzzkill or heartbreak. And I experienced a lot of that. I was sharing this piece of me that I've never shared in my life before. And I wanted it to be so picture perfect, so aesthetically pleasing, so digestible. And so I set all these expectations of how it was supposed to look. And I'm pretty much talking about like aesthetics of it. And I realized that I was doing that because I was doubting my own writing and I was doubting what was actually inside the book. And that was a huge life lesson. Like, we could doll up something, we could try to put this veil over anything we're going to give to someone or anything we're going to express, so we can have this 3D tangible expectation of how people are going to take it, or we want them to take it this way, so it has to look this way. But in reality, you can't do that, because you're going to end up disappointed. And I ended up disappointed. And then I was like, whoa, this is like the most beautiful reflection ever, because I was putting so much pressure on how it was supposed to look versus how it was supposed to feel. When I was creating this book, I was going to spend all this money on like a photo shoot for it. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do my own photo shoot. And then the own photo shoot I did, everything I set up for it just was not working. And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not releasing a photo shoot. I'm releasing a book. And all that I need to do is put the book out there. And I was attaching all these things to it because I was scared. And I wanted everyone to love it. And if I wanted them to love it, it had to look good. And that's the silly sacrament I put on it. So with this whole releasing experience, it just was a lot of trial and error and a lot of what is your true intention behind this? And my true intention was to put my heartstrings out on paper and for people to read. And I kind of got lost in that, I guess, 3D aesthetic of it. That can happen to any of us because we are humans and we are drawn to things that are more aesthetically pleasing. But that doesn't have more power over what's actually inside the book. So if you are wanting to do a book, my advice is to not get so overwhelmed or so obsessed about how it's going to look and worry about how it's going to feel. And right now when I say that, I'm thinking about back when I did pageants in 2017, I think it was. I remember I spent hours and hours at the gym. I focused so much on how I looked. But when I walked into that interview, I freaking bombed it. And not the good kind of bomb.com. Like, I failed that interview so badly. And I was so mad at myself because I spent 6 months, literally, however long I spent prepping for that. And all I cared about was how I looked on that stage. And I never practiced interview once because I was just like, oh, I've got it. I got it. And as soon as I walked in, I failed. I should have learned the first time. I should have learned then. But it's not about what you look like. It's about what's on the inside. And it sounds so silly, because we know that. We think we know that, but then you get caught up in experiences and circumstances that prove you different. And this is what this book taught me. When I launched it, I was super, super excited and elated. And then, and then I went back down to reality, and to see my friends come around for me. Like, I found out who my true friends were in that experience, because they were there to support me when I couldn't even support myself. You have friends that are like, oh, I'm always going to be there for you. I'm always going to be there for you. And then when something like this happens, you really need your friends, because it's like, well, at least I did. I just needed that external support at the time, because I'm like, I felt like a baby giraffe. I didn't know what I was doing. I was releasing all these vulnerable topics, and I had a great community come around and say what you're doing is awesome. And I'm really, really grateful for that. And I would not have been able to do this without them. And I couldn't imagine doing it without them, just releasing all this and then hearing nothing. Like, no, you need community and you need support. Well, you don't need anything, but in my opinion, it just makes it a little bit better. If you're here and you're listening and you're my friend and you were there for me in this experience, I fucking adore you. To see, them buy it and share it and even message me and saying they read it. I'm like, wait, you read it? I'm like, what? You spent the time to read something I worked on? Like, it was so rewarding. I wish this for anyone. And if you've ever had an idea to do it, just try it. Just try it. See how far you get. And if you get stuck, just hit me up, because I feel like I'm an expert on this now. I just hope I don't forget for the next book. Again, if there's a big daddy publisher out there who wants to help me, that'd be great. I know this book landed in the right hands and hit the right hearts, and I'm excited for the next one. The next one's going to be way more elevated, I feel like, because I've had the first experience and I kind of know how to adopt and adjust for the next one. But yeah, I'm still writing a lot, a little bit less. I feel like I was freaking word vomiting in 2022, 2023. I mean, I was waking up with 20 pages. I'm not even exaggerating, of just words. And I'm like, what the fuck? Am I ever going to sleep again? So there was something awakened in me that I was just straight up, again, that's why I call it channeling, because it doesn't sound like me. I'm like, who is this? Is someone hopping in my body in the middle of the night and writing? That could be it. And then, of course, like, I write during the day too, kind of inspired by what I write at night. Yeah, if you do want to develop a writing practice, morning pages is a great way to start. If you are so against writing, or you're like, no, I hate writing, I hate journaling, it set me up good to have a goal and kind of force myself to do it, because you do have to get yourself in the habit. So probably for the first 2-3 years, I was writing 3 pages front and back every day. That's a lot of writing, and you run out of things to think about and to say, but it puts you into a routine and it breaks the habit. So I would wake up and write 3 pages front to back. And a lot of the time it was like, I don't know what to write about. What am I going to eat? Blah, blah, blah. But then you unlock this layer. It's like emptying out the trash. And the more you empty out the trash, just the deeper and deeper you go. And I had that routine, and I have 20 freaking journals to prove myself of that. And it is fun to go back and read them, because you're like, who was I at this time in my life? And then you look back and you see, like, oh, that was the biggest problem in my life. That's what I was stressing about, because now it means nothing to me. And so you have this huge outlook on, like, oh, you just get over things. But in the moment, it's so intense, and writing is just one of the ways to channel it. Now my writing routine is just one long page a day. I wake up, a morning dump, literally my morning brain dump. I don't like how that sounded, but I'm just going to keep it in there anyways. I wake up and I have my little morning drink, and I have my writing time. And sometimes they're stupid and I don't really make sense in them. And then sometimes they're really deep, and I make a little check and I say, I'm going to go back on this. And then I do. Yeah, that's the story. That is the story of my poetic life. If you have a passion for writing or want to write a book, just do it. You might surprise yourself. It's a fun process, and it's something you can look back on. And it's a little document of your time period. And I do want to give some artist tips because I guess I'm this professional artist now. It's never going to be perfect. If you're a perfectionist, you gotta just give it a time stamp and say I'm done. And you just gotta do it. And if you publish it and you look back and you say, "Oh, I should have done that different," and you just gotta get over it and you work on it for the next book. Because really, no one's the worst critic than yourself. And I've learned that through this experience. And if you've ever read someone else's book and you're being a critic about their work, it's probably just a projection of you being critical on yourself. With that being said, I'm going to end it there. I'm going to inspire you to go do whatever you want to do. And that's the story of Sad Flowers Written. If you're questioning yourself, just do it. Just try it. It's better to try something and let it quote unquote fail than to not try it at all. I don't think there are any fails. If you do it, that's a succeed. You win. But you have to do it, or you're going to be on your deathbed wondering why you didn't do it. I'm going to end it there because I could talk about this all day. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to get your own copy of Sad Flowers Written Volume Bloom, you can check my website, sadflowerswritten.com. You can check out the Instagram, sadflowerswritten. There is a free 10 pages if you want to get a little taste of the book. I do offer that on my website. It's my little gift to you. And if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out. I am opening my inbox for you because I want to support you on this journey. Thank you so much for being here. Seriously, this is the 5th episode. I feel like I should pop some champagne or get a cake because I made it. I'm doing it. I'm doing the damn thing. And if you're here, I adore you. So, okay. Goodbye.